if you call someone an asshole and then they turn around and call you a cocksucker because you called them an asshole, you don't get to get mad because they called you a cocksucker, asshole. Christopher Titus. Welcome to the Purple Positivity Podcast for October the 16th, 2018. I am your host, the amazingly adorable Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my new used desk in my apartment, which I called Jeffrey Thistlework. Yas. There's like sirens going on in the background, and I'm like, whoa. It's really, oh my gosh, it's really fucking cold here today, and people, it's cold and it's wet and it's rainy, and people just don't know how to drive or do anything in this weather. So, I hope everything's okay. Actually, I hope it's just a car accident. Like, I mean, car accidents are bad, but I hope it's just that and not anything more nefarious. Anyways, that was a wonderful way to start my show, right? So, I'm late on doing this show, and part of the reason why is I've been going back and forth about whether or not I want to do this show. Because this is not a show about politics. This is not a show about religion. There's a certain element of spirituality to it, but it's not about religion. It's not about politics. It's not about anything like that. And I do my best to stay away from those topics. Now there's a song by Billy Joel called Angry Young Man, and there's a part in there that says, well, he actually in the original, he actually uses the past tense, but whenever I play it on ukulele, I use the present tense. And so it's the part of the song goes the way I sing it is, I believe I've passed the age of righteousness and conscious rage. I found that just surviving is a noble fight. I believe in causes too. I have my pointless point of view, and life goes on no matter who is wrong or right. That's how I feel about it. But I feel like there's something that needs to be said. And I started this show with a really rather offensively worded quote from Christopher Titus. He actually said this on his podcast back in June. But I started it with that because it basically boils down what I want to say. And it has little to nothing to do with politics. And so I'll get there. Okay. Let me get that out the way. This is not a political statement. I'm not trying to be divisive. I'm not trying to be controversial. I am trying to say what is on my heart and on my mind. And and go from there. Okay? Okay. We're good, right? Right. Okay. So, 9/11. Right? That's always the ideal place to start. So, I like many of you listening to this, remember exactly where I was on September 11th, 2001. I had just started my sophomore year of high school. I think we were probably about a month in. I was sitting in my computer programming class, which was first period, and my teacher came in and said, "We're under attack." And she turned on the TV, and we watched the towers fall. And that was a life-changing event for this entire country. And I don't even want to go on to say, and me in particular, because I don't stand out from anybody. That was life-changing, period, for everyone. Now, the way that it particularly impacted me was I didn't lose anybody in the actual attacks. A lot of my family are, or were at that time, less of them still are, active members of the United States military. Specifically, I think most of them are in the Air Force, or were. And so I was worried about them. I was worried about all the other countless people I knew who served in the military. Actually, this wonderful guy whom I had a crush on the year before. His name was Brian. He was in the Army. And so there was a part of me like freaking out about that. I was worried what this would mean for our country and what this would mean for my future and for the future of my friends, because I had a lot of friends in ROTC who planned on going into the military. I was terrified. The other thing that I remember was that I was in a daze for weeks because I don't know if I was doing this consciously or unconsciously, or consciously, unconsciously, but I was trying on some level to absorb all the sadness and pain and fear around me so that other people didn't have to feel it as much. And so I remember being horrifically depressed over this tragedy. What I also remember is one day, this guy that I'd known by name and by appearance, we were acquainted with each other, sort of, like we knew who each other was. I think he had noticed how down I was, how shocked I was, how in pain I felt. And he came up to me one day and we had a conversation. We came from very different backgrounds. Similarities there, but very different backgrounds. He is Hispanic and I'm white. We had vastly different interests. He's big on sciencey stuff and concrete concepts. I, on the other hand, tend to dabble in the abstract. Dabble isn't really quite the word, but, you know, there you are. We had very different taste in music. We had a similar sense of humor, but we sat down and we acknowledged our differences, but ultimately decided that those differences didn't fucking matter. We were both human. We were both feeling this sadness. We were both in shock. And that guy, he didn't necessarily become one of my best friends or one of my closest friends. He was one of my favorite people in high school. He always made me smile. He always brightened my day. And actually, fast forward 2 years, and to my high school graduation, and of all the people that I graduated with, he was the only one to come up to me at the end of the ceremony and give me a hug and say, "We did it. And, you know, congratulations, and I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you made it. I'm proud of you." He was the only one out of a graduating class of 250 something. One person that came up to me after 9/11 and connected with me on a human level. But here's the thing that I keep thinking about in those early days after 9/11 is I saw this fucking everywhere. I saw this in commercials. I saw this in paper advertisements. We put it on our class shirt that year. United we stand. Politics didn't fucking matter at that time. It was a huge thing. If you recall, like, there was huge divide and huge controversy and people butting heads throughout the Bush administration. I'm not denying that there wasn't division in this country. There was huge division in this country after 9/11. But for a short period of time, united we stood in the face of an enemy trying to tear apart our nation. Politics didn't matter. Religion didn't matter, for the most part. Let's be clear about that. For the most part, religion didn't matter. We all know the exceptions to which I'm referring. But united we stood in that moment. And so I'm taking a step back, looking at all the things going on in this country. And again, I don't want to make this political. I have my opinions. But opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them, and they all stink. And they're shitty. They're all shitty and they stink. But I'm watching what's going on in this country. Politically, socially, culturally. And all I can think is, what the fuck happened to United We Stand? What happened to us being able to sit down, acknowledge our differences, and come to a common ground? We did it. My friend in high school, one of my favorite people in high school, I ended up calling him Weasel. Long story. I was the bleached hamster. We had our inside jokes. That was it. He was Weasel. I was the bleached hamster. We didn't have to agree on everything in order to get along. He didn't have to share my opinions in order to be one of my favorite people in the whole world. And I really wish I could track him down right now and say, dude, you mean the world to me. You meant the world.